You're listening to Raising Anchor, a Rhode Island FC podcast. We're glad you're here. Hello, and welcome to Raising Anchor, your podcast and source for all things Rhode Island FC. I'm your host, Matt Intrican, coming to you on Thursday, May 2nd. RIFC fails to capitalize on their previous success and falls to Phoenix Rising in the first home loss of the season. Is this team moving in the right direction? We'll figure that out and get you ready to see if this team has what it takes on the road against the current last place team in the Eastern Conference. Joining me, as always, is co-host Jason Carey. Jason, how is it going, my friend?
Good. Did you see that Kano's friend, Wilfred Nancy, made it to the CONCACAF Champions Cup final with Columbus Crew? And their local news threw some hard shade at Precourt. That was hilarious.
That is probably the greatest 5 seconds of news. Quality programming. Usually I wouldn't even break it down. I would say just go watch it. But in case you can't find it or just choose not to, the news company decides to say, hey, we just want to check in with former owner Anthony Precourt and how he's doing with that expansion side. And we just want to take a look at his trophy cabinet and see how that's looking. And then they just pan to emptiness. I mean, you can't see it. It's an audio format. Chef's kiss. The only thing that ruined the day for me, because I was thinking the same thing, right? Like, man, if this is what Wilfried Nancy can do, I mean, he's gone at the end of the season. There's no way he's not in a bigger league somewhere in Europe or somewhere else. You know, I was thinking like, man, how can Kano like extract some of that talent for us? Or, I mean, he's already doing it with the crew too, which perfect segue we'll talk about later tonight. But I was just like, man, how could we like capitalize on this? And I was on such a high for Anthony Precourt because hashtag not an MLS podcast. But for those of you that don't know, the Wooden Spoon in MLS, they've literally named the last, like, you know, it's the Lamar Hunt Open Cup Trophy. It's the Phil Anschutz MLS Cup. You know, it's all the people that have propped up soccer over the years, get the big trophies. It's the Landon Donovan MVP. But the last place award goes to Anthony Precourt. And he's just a terrible human being. I was enjoying all of it. And then I saw Alexi Lawless, who, we got to be careful, by the way, when we talk about Lawless, because his brother, Greg, is in charge of USL marketing. So we got to make sure we don't get too deep into the hot seat here. But Lawless is known for his just ridiculous takes. He went on, and rather than just letting Nancy and the Columbus Crew enjoy their moment in the sun, he goes and says that the Columbus Crew, the city of Columbus, should be thanking Anthony Precourt that he wanted to move the team, and it kicked it like a frenzy. Like it spurred this need and desire to start investing in their community and their soccer club, which is what's revitalized the organization. That is such an insane take. I mean, he's known for insane takes, but that might be the top of the top on that. Like, you blame a failed and crappy leader who wanted to remove your team as the good luck charm, not the talent of the team, not the organization, not the community rallying. It's because you needed a villain to conquer, which is what propelled you to the top. That's insane. This is not a Disney film.
That is weird that he would go there and not just say, hey, look how great it is to see this team, you know, revitalize and become a like competitive and, you know, probably the best team in North America.
Easily.
Instead, it's like, hey, it wouldn't have happened if the bad guy didn't, you know, make a call to action from me. Like, I don't know, that's just dumb.
I also heard an interesting theory on like the marketing side of MLS this week that they gave Miami more games at the beginning so that they could sit at the top of the table to like feed the all-star narrative of that action-packed squad. Because when you look at the likes of Columbus and even the Philadelphia Union right now, and I think that one of the New York teams is also doing extremely well, they are all outperforming Inter Miami, but they have 3 games in hand on that squad. So like, I mean, and again, 3 games is just an opportunity. It doesn't mean anything yet. But because of that, until those teams can catch up, which is like mid-season, like in the summertime, if Miami stays on pace and the other teams do the exact same and or better, they can't actually top the table until I think it's July. Someone ran the calculation. So it's just, you know, more narrative. Obviously, Miami was in town last weekend. It was a tough week for soccer in New England, and it's insane too. I mean, we're recording Thursday. This goes out tomorrow on Friday. That'll be a whole week since the game because it was an earlier day.
Feels like it's been forever.
Yeah, it was a tough week. And even so, we joked last week that, soccer was amber and blue in Rhode Island because of the win. It still kind of was amber blue last week because even though we lost, the New England Revolution, they got blown out. And then we don't even need to talk about our friends, best in the, or less than best in the West. So, I mean, it was a rough week for soccer in New England.
Definitely a down week for everyone up here.
Did you know another fun stat, and then we'll move on? Nick Markanich, who is the goal scorer for the Charleston Battery, who are just on a tear right now, scored 4 goals in a single game. And then when I looked at the stat record, he's got 11 on total for the season. And then USL pumped out a stat that said, did you know that he's better than 18 other teams combined in total goal score, including us in the Rhode Island FC? I went further and tracked that stat to the MLS. He's beating 4 MLS teams, including the Revs right now, in total goal contribution on the season. This guy's already at Chico's. He's halfway on Chico's record, and he's 7 games into the season. I know that streaks can get hot and cold, but what a tremendous start for that guy.
Yeah, that's crazy. They're doing really well over there. Have you seen that meme where it's got their logo and then a raccoon comes dancing in?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it's about, but
great.
It's flooded their socials lately. I need to get more history on that. But we had some players that, we had a player, I should say, that almost kind of went for some honors this week in USL, Mr. Clay Holstead.
Yeah, unfortunately, Clay got denied goal of the week.
I don't know how. How does that happen?
From what I've seen, this seems to be a popularity contest. We have featured in a lot of the goals and saves and whatnot of the weeks, but despite the best efforts of Defiance 1636, we got to get everyone else in there.
Yeah, but Clay's goal was the first one to go viral for the team. It has 130,000 likes on Instagram and TikTok right now. It was retweeted, rebroadcasted by all the major soccer hubs. I mean,
an
indirect kick, you don't see those very often, which we are going to talk about tonight. I couldn't believe that didn't manifest as a goal of the week for Clay.
Hopefully we'll win one of those, but at the end of the day, it's just a popularity contest. I'm glad that we are getting acknowledged at least.
So should we even bother bringing up that Jackson Lee is nominated right now for Player of the Month as a goalkeeper, which is a very rare. Usually you don't see defensive players, let alone goalkeepers, but he's in the mix. Do we even bother bringing that up?
We can vote and try and get him second place. There's no way he's going to beat Nick Markanich.
Right.
Let's be honest there.
How many saves does a goalkeeper have to offset goals scored by a striker?
He'd probably have to have something crazy 25, 30 saves or something where it's just an absurd number.
The unfair life of a defender in the sport of soccer. And then just one other quick thing, the almost complete New England soccer package is here. USL 1 announces the new Portland team. Gotta ask for your reaction. What did you think of the launch of that? What was your initial take?
Initially, I thought it was cool. It's different.
I love it.
There's definitely a habit of a lot of American teams to kind of take what they see overseas into different leagues and maybe put their own twist on it. But this is definitely something that I don't think I've seen before.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit of a shout to Hearts of Midlothian in the Scottish Premier League, right? So it's Hearts. But just the idea, like you said, it's not pandering to where we're just taking, we're not Real Salt. What does that even mean, Real Salt? I've never figured that out.
Real just means royal in Spanish.
I know, but what was royal? And that's what I'm saying. What's royal about Utah? I mean, they've got some great parks, but what is the royalty in?
I don't know. Maybe the Queen of England likes the team.
She's the secret owner. Having said that, I love the name. I love the idea of it. It seems like Portland's getting really, really behind this. We just need New Hampshire now. New Hampshire just needs to get their act together, get a team, an official USL 1 team, and we've got the New England Kings Cup ready to go for some fun there. But I love it. I can't wait to see what happens, and maybe we'll see some action from them in Open Cup next year. In other news, initial attendance has finally come out. We were hoping we could report on this more frequently in the earlier stages of the podcast going live as games started, but the site that had been producing historic stadium attendance data, they just kind of went quiet this year. Like they had been doing it for like 6 years in a row, and not just USL, all leagues. So I was really excited to start reporting on that. And then lo and behold, they just haven't updated the site this year. So I don't know if they stopped or if there's been a delay for some reason. So I've been kind of waiting to see and understand what that is. And not bad. Rhode Island FC coming in at 14th place in the league out of 24 teams as a net new team in a temporary college stadium.
So far, so good. I wouldn't call the weather at any of our games great. There was two of the games where it's not bad, but as the sun kind of went down, you still needed a jacket and a little bit of wind. As the temperatures rise during the summer months here, I think we're gonna see those numbers go up. But yeah, so far so good, I'd say.
I was shocked in the stats. There were two columns that made me kind of pause as a caution or a concern. One was Hartford actually going down by 24% in their regular attendance on year-over-year averaging. That just tells you what a losing product can do to a fan base that's trying to get behind a team with no history or no hope. So definitely something as a caution for the front office to be very cognizant of, and not, even if we have to wait for this project to settle itself into, let's call it, fighting shape, it can't come at the lack of fan engagement. So that's definitely a number that I'm very cognizant of. And then Birmingham Legion just like completely dropping off this season. I knew Kano was a big deal when we signed him. I didn't know he was that impactful down with the Legion in Birmingham.
Yeah, that's weird. I wonder if something else is going on there too. They have a capacity of 20,000, which is crazy too.
They play in a football stadium. So
yeah, but you think that you can maybe get a few more people in there. But then you look, is this the Nick Mercanich effect? Charleston's almost up 30%.
I mean, exciting product. You're scoring on average, I think it's 3 goals a game right now. Yeah, winning solves all your problems. Losing creates all of your problems, right? It's a story as old as time. But yeah, so like again, it's one of those things where the club's gonna have to keep maintaining their season ticket member experience and like just trying to continue to entice the new fans to make sure that this is something going into Tidewater. There's momentum because you don't want to see us shrink or fall flat. And I think you're spot on. Like the weather, has been against. I'm gonna say it's been against us. It's been temperate. It's been crappy at times, but like once that good weather shows up, that's going to be in and of itself another attribute in the positive side of why to come out and see a game.
With the derby approaching, coming up, June 1st, season ticket members who are interested in attending the game with the club, check your emails for the away game package. Extremely limited inventory. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure you jump on that. Yeah,
the supporters group are doing their thing, but the club is also getting behind supporting some of the fans traveling out. It's a really good package. We're not promoting this for any, like the club didn't ask us to, but we know that there's been a lot of interest in the home match and as well as the away match. So if you're not someone that checks your emails, I've got like 10,000 unread. Make sure you go in and check for that information, because I anticipate that a package as great and as lucrative as that will fill out very quickly and get full. So if you're interested, don't wait. That's something to jump on as soon as possible. And then last plug, it came out right as we were recording, literally last week. The Rhode Island FC app is now finally live. We've been waiting for this thing since a couple weeks before the season started. It was kind of teased along to us that this was something that was going to be coming out. It's definitely a partnership with a lot of different moving pieces. So the vendor, that's the SeatGeek part. It's the vendor as the USL app itself and integrating all of that. But, this is not just like here's some pictures of the squad and here's your schedule. There's a lot of synergy in the application from not just the news, but like the ticket specials as well. And then just the fact that you can have SeatGeek directly into it. I've already integrated it into the app myself. Super clean, super smooth on game day to just get that stuff done. And then, of course, like the shops there and everything else, too. So it is very inclusive of a lot of different features. So I can't recommend getting it enough, because then you don't need to go into several different places, including SeatGeek on day of, since it's a digital entry. So highly encourage downloading that. And then we just got to figure out a way to get the RIFC Club Collector app, card collector app next year into this device, and then it's like the perfect system, right? Then I don't need to do anything else but just live in the RIFC app.
Yeah, I mean, that thing's really cool. You should somehow try and get that integrated with all of USL. That could strike it big for him.
He's working on it. I think this is definitely a proving ground for his opportunity to say, hey, like, look how many people are engaged. Look how fun this is. And again, differentiation, my friend. In a time when MLS is scooping up everything, a way to differentiate is key. So we've got a ton still to go. This is going to be a long episode, folks. Just buckle in.
They always are.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I think it's more dangerous when we announce it from the beginning instead of lie to ourselves. But we've got signings to get through. We've got game recap, and then we've got the game preview for everything going on. So let's get through this. We've got an academy player. We have an academy. What's going on here?
Yeah. So RIFC picked up Kevin Ordoy, midfielder / kind of forward. 18-year-old Colombian, comes from the RGV Taurus Academy, RIP, after playing with Union Magdalena's academy. Ordoy has signed a USL academy contract. He will have the opportunity to train and compete with RFC while preserving his amateur status and NCAA eligibility. This allows us to take advantage of a new USL provision that recently came into effect where teams can have 2 extra players that are signed to academy deals on the bench for home matches.
So this is a really interesting mechanism, right? Because, most of the time it's like you have an academy and you use them for bench filler when you have injuries, and maybe if you just feel like it's time for them to maybe step into a game, depending on who's in town. Maybe sometimes like you've got family from afar and you just want to let them see like, hey, you're on the bench. But this mechanism kind of allows you to really do a lot of different things. Is that something that you've seen in other leagues across the world? Or is this isn't something that MLS does?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think anyone else has mechanisms like this. I mean, at least, like I said, not that I'm aware of. What I like about this is there's no like training or replacement for the game day experience. So even if he doesn't get the opportunity to go like put some minutes out, the fact that he is in the locker room with the team, he goes out into the field, they do their rondos, their training, their running, he's gets that experience that you can't replicate by just having a training on a Thursday morning, right? It's not the same thing. So that when he eventually or hopefully gets to that opportunity, he feels comfortable and is, aware of his surroundings. Is like, hey, I've been here before. I've done this. I'm ready to go.
I saw a little bit of tape on him. He doesn't really stand out in any way, shape just yet, or at least on the tape I saw. He definitely, in the tape I did see, he was midfielder first. I didn't see any in like a striker role. So he could be someone that, successfully acclimates and provides an X factor at some point. You never know. I'm just excited that we took advantage of a rule change. Like, I love when clubs see something happen and go, hey, we can make this work. Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, it may be an academy contract, but this is not a quote unquote academy player. We're not starting an academy.
Yeah, so it says it's preserving his amateur status and NCAA eligibility. So does that mean he can also participate in like college sports too?
I would imagine kind of similar to how the USL2 operates, where they play for the summer season and then they go back to their college affiliate, their D1 through 3 school.
Yeah, so it's like an internship or something.
I mean, it might as well be, right? So I'm just excited. It'll be interesting to see if we take advantage of the second spot, if it's something that we wait on, we sit on, because there is starting to be a lot of interest in our local soccer community, because our other signing, not really a secret if you've paid attention to the social media over the last couple of months, but maybe the more casual fan or someone who is only just recently kind of tuning into the club, Isaac Enking joins Rhode Island FC. It was announced on Tuesday. He's the 24th player signing for the squad. He heralds from Puerto Rico as a national team player, but he's a Rhode Island native. Plays in the midfield. And before we go further, can I just say I didn't know that Puerto Rico had a national team. I thought they were a province. I'm gonna like really age myself here. I thought they were connected to America as an extension of the United States.
I think because they don't have statehood, that they
it's like
can.
A weird gray area.
The same way that
he's played on the U20 team for USA as well. So
Yeah, you have to play a certain amount of games
you
to get
capped it,
yourself
right,
locked
right.
down. Because I think even like what America Samoa Islands have a
I
team.
see.
I
I need
mean,
to learn more about this now because I
you
did
know,
not know. Does that mean like the Virgin Islands have their own? We got to figure this out.
possibly.
We got to figure this out. Like that. That's the perfect story. But anyways, I didn't know Puerto Rico had a national team. So now I'm gonna learn about that and become the biggest fan here in New England. But the 24-year-old played 4 seasons with New England Revolution Academy before actually getting a senior MLS contract with the first team. He only played in 3 games with the Revs. This was back in 2018 and it didn't work out before he was loaned down to the Charlotte Independence of Open Cup demise fame for us Rhode Island FC fans. And then he moved back to the Revolution too. So there was a little bit of like back and forth in that space with the loan. And then he went off to join the, guess what, Columbus Crew 2, back with the MLS Next Pro in 2022, where he won a chip with that squad. Again, he is a Revolution Academy product. He's a Crew 2 product. We've seen a lot of players come into our squad from both the Academy at Revs and the Crew 2. I know that we've seen him in pictures with the squad since before Bermuda. There's actually a really good picture. I threw it up in the Discord of him standing on the beach because I was like, who is this person? Like, why is he in the squad? So he's been on my radar for a long time. I have seen him at practice sessions, but he's been sidelined the entire time. He hasn't actually been in the practice. I kept asking, like, what's he doing here? And they said, hey, like, there's nothing to announce until there's something to announce. Well, surprise. Here we go. Now he's actually on the squad. My guess is he picked up an injury of some sort, either in Bermuda or at the Revs 2 game that followed. I didn't see him in the kind of things that I've seen Connor McGlynn or Amos in. So I don't know what that injury was, or maybe they just had to wait for contracts to settle and gel on whatever he needed to be signed on. But I really like this signing. I did see him play in the kind of scrimmages and the practices going into Bermuda. He's very physical. But he's also very nimble, and I think he might be just the midfielder reinforcement that we're looking for. Don't know if it's an X factor yet, but considering we picked him up basically on the, I don't want to say cheap, but we picked him up where he was looking for a squad. He's probably hungry to prove himself to try to get back to the earnings of like those MLS opportunities. This to me makes sense. He fits the Rhode Island box. He fits the midfielder position, which I feel like we might be a little light on right now. And he seems like a guy with a lot of hunger and a lot of talent.
It's funny. We talked about him quite some time ago, and I kind of just forgot about him and assumed he was with the squad, but also never thought about the fact that he was not listed in anything anywhere.
Yeah, there's been a lot of players that have stayed on for a couple of weeks, and I keep asking like, what's the semi-permanence of this? And they go, don't get attached. It's an ongoing review. They're trying to understand what that would look like. So, as coach has always said, roster is never finished. So, at least in its construction. But I'm really excited by this. I can't wait to see what happens. It seems like fans are pretty receptive of him as a former Revs player himself. So really excited to see what he brings this year on the season. So congrats, Isaac, to joining Rhode Island FC. You ready to do this? You ready to talk about a game that happened a week ago and that I'm sure a lot of people would rather just not remember?
I did have to go back and rewatch almost the whole match. I don't always have to do that because I, kind of forgot some of it. I had
Friday games are weird, man. Football de Viernes is a weird thing. Weird.
I had a lot of the key points ready. I already some notes I already took, but I just needed to brush up on it because it's been a minute.
It has. All right, well, let's do this. So 3-5-2, that's nothing new. We knew that was coming, right? But there was one big surprise in it. It's the same lineup we saw, exact same lineup in Vegas. The only difference here is Lee comes back into goal. And there was a lot of questions, a lot of comments that everyone kind of figured. We kind of leaned towards the idea that Koke was going back into the goal because, he's the captain. He's the first player signed. Coach says, no, I'm basing this on performance. Lee's the hot, keeper at the moment with coming off of a win and outside of the Open Cup, 2 scoreless draws. It makes sense in the, in hindsight or in the final victory result. It doesn't kind of yield out for that, but it makes sense for Lee to be able to get that start and get that opportunity. So you saw that 3-5-2, Nadarce, Yao, and Alves in the back 3, the Turnbull, Holstead, Brito, Ibarra, Quizera midfield 5, and then your captain Chico along with Fuson in that striker front. Listen, this This could either, we could sit here and lament and we could complain about what we saw, what went wrong. But I think others have done it, and it's so late into the week that it's just almost like I want to just like rush through this. Obviously, I'm not, but the main comments that if I were to start things off, one, I feel like we didn't maintain any of the lessons that we learned in Las Vegas. I feel like, when I was asked and when we talked about it last week, it was like, hey, what does Rhode Island FC need to do? They just need to do more of the same. And that didn't seem to be the case on the night. Meanwhile, we said Phoenix doesn't need to figure their stuff out. That's all we needed. We needed Rhode Island to keep doing what they did and Phoenix not to figure it out, and we just crisscrossed it. The messages got mixed up. You were bagging on Remy Cabral up until the game literally started. Cabral goes out, gets his act together, does the thing that you never want to see happen, and this game just goes completely off the rails. We've got tons of different angles and approaches that we could go to this, but what are your initial thoughts on this before we deep dive?
I think this is basically an inexperienced team trying to string together results, and I think maybe to a certain extent they probably underestimated Phoenix.
Everybody did. Did you
like,
go into the Discord? Everyone said this was a win.
There was only one person, and that person was doing it to try and anti-jinx themselves and think that if they called for us to lose, that we would win. It didn't work. I think in some regards, it's important to have that like a short-term memory and not, you forget that you won. You play your game and just take it one game at a time in that regards, right? I'm not saying they were overconfident, but they have to have been aware of Phoenix struggles this year. And I think that coming off that win, they had a little bit of a high, and you could see it the first 40 minutes or so, 30-ish. They didn't play as well as they have.
No, they didn't. And coach said winning teams don't lose 2 in a row. Well, I would also argue winning teams need to be able to string together 2 wins in a row. So that may be the next lesson that needs to get learned. I don't disagree with anything you're saying. It was difficult. I wanted to be tactical. I wanted to make sure that the data, because we like to go data heavy. We like to find the stats that matter because I think others like to talk about like what they see in the moment. I've got 2 big attributes that I think kind of really made this game not be what it needed to be for the team. And tell me if you think I'm crazy here, but one, I feel like the wingbacks are definitely the key piece to this squad being effective in the final third. And it all comes down to the performance of our wingbacks on the night. And I don't mean necessarily that it's a bad performance, but I mean, what is their agenda on the night? Whether that is to run down the flanks and do crossing, that's to do the cutbacks that we saw so effectively in the Vegas game to just bring runners forward centrally. You saw the fall off on the wingbacks on the night. And when you have 17 corners / crosses on the evening and you don't make any connections to a attacking player in the box, like that's starting to become a problem when you really think about like the offensive threat. If all you have to do is like put 5 people around Chico because no like decent service is coming in, that starts to be a like, let the wings have the ball, let them do their thing, and we'll just let them break themselves down. And we saw that because we had the lion's share of possession. It wasn't the largest possession on the season we've had, but we had 60% of that possession and we didn't do anything with it, right? Like they set up in a low block. They allowed us to come forward. The wings couldn't do anything except bad crossing or reset back to the center line and try to do it down the opposite side. We didn't have any direct play. It didn't seem like a good game.
When we look at a lot of the crosses, you see that we talked about Rios Nova, right? He's a good goalkeeper. Too many of those crosses were like just too close to, let's say, like his sphere of influence where he could just punch them away or collect them. We didn't see those cutbacks like we did in Las Vegas where you come to the byline or, you send the ball to the top of the box or to the, the penalty spot where you were then trying to pull and move the defense and kind of catch them off guards. Instead, it was a lot of like very easy for for them to kind of either knock away or for Rios Novo to just collect.
Okay, so if we know the wingbacks are playing a part, or are contributing to this lack of goal production, is it coming down to the players on the pitch or the formation? Because I would say, well, we definitely seem to have a wingback problem, and again, I don't mean it in a bad way. It's just it's an inconsistency. I think that what you said is the best way to frame it. I think there's also another thing, and I think we have a Joe Brito problem, and it's been a long time coming. We've seen glimpses of greatness, and we've seen sneak peeks into the chaos. And what I mean by that is I don't think Joe Brito's a bad player. I think he's a player in the wrong position. We've talked about it. I think one of his best games was actually in the Open Cup when he played a more 8-based role, or at least based on his positioning, he was kind of forced into a standard 8. I think in playing central or playing up and as the most forward mid, you can call it a cam if you want. You can call it like a third 8.
He's the 10,
yeah,
right?
But I mean, again, you can call it a 10 or you can call it like the most overexposed 8. But he is not being productive. He doesn't seem to be as capable of taking the ball and distributing it forward with his back to goal, and creating direct play chances. His stats, when I went and looked at it, they are completely just underperforming with the rest of the midfielders and wingbacks around him. And what's weird is, like, you see his effort, you see his hustle, you see his like desire to make an impact on the game. It's either he is one of the most unluckiest players and is always just out of position, wrong place, wrong time, or it's just that what he's being asked to do, he can't produce in the formation he is. I don't think he's a 10. I don't think that we signed him to be that 10. I think this is a lack of Connor McGlynn or a lack of JJ Williams right now. I don't know, but I think we have a problem. So is it formation, or is it that Brito just can't handle the role that's being assigned to him?
Interesting thought. Like you said,
Jason, hold on. He had 22 passes on the night in a time where his counterparts had 44 each. They each went on to like over 60 because they played more minutes, but his wingbacks were doubling his touches. His passing accuracy was 10% lower in those same passes. And this is just one game stats, but he did not have a contribution that a 10 needs to have on the pitch.
I think he is a hardworking, industrious player. I like him, but I also kind of agree with you. I just think that maybe he is being played out of position. We've had a lot of injuries this season. Things have maybe, coach started the season with some players that I think he was counting on, but they were not available. So, I don't know if the 3-5-2 and this kind of style of formation is what he originally was set on, or if this was him adjusting to what he has available.
Oh, come on. Let's be honest. It's a 4-3. He was building this team like the 4-3-3 he discussed with us. The two big things that changed this is JJ started the season hurt and Chico came onto this squad.
True, but this is Kano's first season as a head coach. So he is learning and growing as well. So it's possible that, maybe he wanted to try this out.
So how many games is a trial? Because we've seen other coaches this season experiment and after 3 games pivot into something else. We have now already seen the first sack of the year in the Oakland Roots for poor performance. I am not saying, by the way, that Coach Kano is in the hot seat at all. I'm just simply saying the 3-5-2 now has lost us, if you want to be technical, has lost us over, what is that, 2-4-6? It's lost us 10 points on the season with the 3-5-2. And so is it the player's performance? Is it them adopting a 3-5-2, or is it the nature of the 3-5-2 itself?
It's possible that maybe coach wants to get the players used to this so it can be a part of their skill set so that they can switch between, like a 4-back line kind of, either a 4-3-3 or 4-4-2 or whatever you want, or 4-2-3-1, whatever you want to call that, or a 3-5-2. Actually, after the game, I had asked him, when we look back at Phoenix's games, they've actually switched back and forth between a 3 and 4 back line. And the coach actually has made a lot of changes with varying degrees of success. And it's to kind of mirror the opponent. So us playing a 3-back line, they also played a 3-back line, even though the week before they lined up in a 4-back line, and the week before that 4 as well. But I think a month ago, they played another team who also uses a 3-back line, and they did the same thing.
Yeah, but like as soon like later in the game when we moved to the 4-4-2, we looked like a completely different team. But we were down 2 goals. That took a completely different kind of animal to bring out. I guess not saying tactics, because I don't disagree with you, but how many more games before the 3-5-2 has to really be questioned? Or is it not the amount of games that this performance has to result? It's more of the when we have the right players in. So like basically I'm going to ask you, do we have to wait for the 4-3-3 until JJ Williams is healthy?
Possibly. He did say that he was thinking about, potentially being more flexible. He kind of didn't give me an answer there, but he did at least acknowledge that maybe it's something he's considering. I also maybe, if McGlynn gets back healthy as well too, that would help. I think we might see it sooner, but I also don't think that he's ready to just toss the 3-5-2 out just yet. I think we have seen flashes where the team, like, you can see all of a sudden it works and they get it, but it's like, how do you keep that going forward? And that's just what we haven't seen. It's that inconsistency. We can see either halves or even halves of halves where the team plays really well in that formations. But we haven't seen them play a complete game in that formation, I'd say.
But again, we're almost at 10 games. So at some point, the currency of patience
I guess
fans have.
We did win Las Vegas, right? So I guess that is to a certain extent a complete game, right?
I mean, it was, like you said, squeaky bum time for the last 20 minutes. I know they got the job done.
Yeah, but all team, soccer tends to have ebbs and flows to it. You don't, unless you're like, Arsenal or Man City or like, Barca 2012, the other team is going to have the ball and they're going to kind of get into the game. Unless their coach is incompetent, they're going to make some sort of changes and you have to be able to weather those storms. So just because we had to defend for the last 30 minutes, they did it. They won. I mean, that's part of the game too.
Listen, the verdict's not out. I think a lot of fans are starting to ask questions about that formation. I think we've got a lot of smart soccer people that pay attention to this club. So, you can say whatever you want to say, but the club promised only one thing, that they would play an attractive and exciting form of soccer, and losing 3-1 at home is not going to get the job done. So they've got lots to figure out. And one of the things they need to figure out is who's going to start taking penalties, because I don't know if it's still Chico at this time.
So I actually looked into his stats. I was kind of curious. Last year, he took 2 penalties and scored both of them. Before that, in the USL, he was not taking penalties. So he does not have a long history of penalties. So within the last, we'll say last year and this year, he's 50%.
Listen, he got his first shot at the Open Cup game. He's now had a second shot. We asked the coach, it was one of the first questions we asked after he did the recap, is Chico still in line? And he didn't directly say no. He said, Chico's going to have to figure that out. He did mention Chico was working through an injury. I think that's kind of a cart before the horse situation then. Like, if you knew he was playing through an injury, like, why would you let him take the penalty? Again, he was the captain on the night, so like that could have been his decision. That's one of the few opportunities I think you've said, right, where if you're wearing the armband, that's usually like captain's choice at the end of the day. So
yeah, and you also want your goal scorer to be hungry for goals. So I mean, I feel I can't fault him for it. If he takes another one and misses it, I think that they're gonna have to take that away from him. Maybe
you
for a
give
while.
Chico another shot.
I think he deserves it
over Holstead and Fuson, who are just as hungry.
I mean, at that point, maybe if there is a different captain on the field and they feel that someone else should take them, I imagine they will have a conversation behind the scenes. If, he is nursing a quad injury, once he is back to full fitness, and, they're definitely practicing penalties in practice. So if he continues to make them in practice, he feels comfortable. I think at some point he'll be given another chance. But at that point, he's going to have to bury it or they'll take it away from him.
We talked to Seth, the ref. He gave us the recap, and he didn't actually think that PK was warranted. He thought that Quazera striking the arm of the defender, that was too close for the defender to do anything else but just keep his hand right where it was. I think even when we were up in the box, we said that can't be for a handball.
I thought it was for a pullback.
Right.
Yeah, it was weird.
So Seth actually says that he doesn't think that was. He actually thought it was a PK given to make up for a lack of a PK call on Chico a few minutes before, where he got tripped up in the box. So
I thought that one was just on the edge, but
it was. He did, and Seth did clarify it was, but with momentum, he falls through the box, and without VAR, that's something that it's an error of margin at that point. It could go really either way.
I can't remember when it happened too, but Turnbull got taken down either in the box or on the line too.
Yeah,
that might have been early on. So maybe he was just like, should have done those, but whatever. Here you go. Here's been.
Yeah, we talked to Seth. We made sure to get some of the calls clarified. He didn't think the Alves getting thrown into the wall was card worthy. It was a simple case of momentum again. It looked worse than it actually was. And then, of course, Alves got his revenge by putting him into the wall later in the game. So you love to see the fight and the players. But let's talk before we move out of the first half. Listen, Frank Nadarse, he has been a rock on that back three since the start of the season. Did not have the best game. I don't think we need to go into that more than what everyone saw. He was definitely a contributor to both of the goals being scored on the night through some very poor decision making. In fact, so much so on the second goal, even if he had stopped it, I think he took the player out in the box, so it would have been a penalty if they hadn't scored it. But yeah, he definitely, I'm sure he's already gotten out of his own headspace of saying, I made some real big mistakes. We've now had every single defender make a mistake that has led to, costing us a goal. So hopefully this is kind of the end of that. They all can shake out of it and get that kind of stuff beyond them. Otherwise, we may be up for some real wake ups especially if we continue on this back three line going into the rest of the season. I will ask you, I don't know if Stoneman will be healthy on the game, but given the fact that we've seen complete mistakes from the likes of Alves, Yao, and Nadarse, does Stoneman get another shot at this, or do we continue to let this back three gel?
I think once Stoneman is healthy, he will probably come back. But in the same way that we saw Lee continue, if the team puts out a good performance this weekend, he might say, well, these guys did good. Let's just keep going with them. And then wait until something happens to give him a reason to change it. But if Vegas comes back, though, because of their the compatibility with Stoneman, I think we'll probably see him. Just a real quick, not to give him a complete pass, but I'm pretty sure hasn't Nadarse been playing on the left or the middle of a back three?
He's played all three. He actually was the left-sided center back before Alves got the role.
Yeah, so this time he was playing. This time he was playing on the right. So yeah, maybe that's just not something, a little uncomfortability there from him. Listen, like you said though, they've all made mistakes at some point. Yeah. So we don't want to bash him, and I've been really impressed with him so far this season.
Yeah, if you had told me we had a defender make some mistakes on the night, and I just had to blind guess, Nadarse would have been my last guess on the evening. I will say though that there is something that kind of opened itself up as a first ever on this game, and that was the exposure on run of play defense. I've never seen this squad do the amount of emergency defending that I saw in this game. I don't know if that was Remy's speed. I don't know. We've been worried more about set piece defense and making bad mistakes from a high press. None of these goals were from the result of we were too far overextended and just got countered. We had the numbers in place. We just poorly man marked, got beat by the the opponent, and then in the run of play just got outscored and kind of dunked on in that sense. That was a surprise to me. We have not seen that yet from this team, and I don't know if that's something that like we need to be worried about.
I think maybe coach got out tacticked there a little bit. In the first half, there's a lot of instances where you look and like our back line didn't kind of match up to their forward line, where they were always backing off, and what would happen is they would start to run at them, and like our back line was just kind of not prepared. They, like you said, they were not man marking, they were more marking zones. So I don't know if that was a tactic decision or maybe them just some overconfidence, but there was multiple times where Cabral would drop deeper into midfield, or he'd be numerous yards away from Yao, and he'd be kind of moving back and forth and looking for an opportunity to kind of strike along with his winger partners there.
It's probably because Yao knew he doesn't have the speed to keep up with the likes of Cabral. So yeah, I think that's right. On the second goal, though, to your point, they went through five RIFC defenders. They all fell, by the way. It started up with because Quizera, he fell through he tried to intercept a tackle. Then it was Alves who tried to like slide out and block someone. Then it was Ibarra tried to slide and block someone. And then it was Nodarse trying to stop with his body, and then Jackson just falls over trying to commit to the block.
Just a comedy of errors there.
Yeah, I think we had more players on the ground as a result of that goal. So you hate to see it happen, but we can't be giving up those kinds of early goals. That was the earliest goal scored for or scored against in our entire history as a club so far.
You know, it came from a poor giveaway in our own half. I think that, you know, we're not going to bash on anyone here, but I think if Yao was able to slide there instead of, it seemed almost like he was trying to extend his foot to control. You know, maybe he could have stopped the ball. But to be fair, it was a good cross from Cuello. It kind of curved there a bit.
I wish we had some good crosses.
You know, Cabral, all he had to do was give it a little tap to put it past Lee.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this defending squad has a lot of answers that they got to look for in the practice. Hopefully this week as they travel down to North Carolina. Before we get to that game, though, we've got some things we need to talk about in that second half. Noah Fuson, you know, before we get to the big one, I just got to get this out there. Noah Fuson's amazing. His touch, his pass rate, his effectiveness. I really feel like if we had to continue the experimentation of like the Joe Brito 10. I kind of want to see the Noah Fuson 10 more than the Joe Brito 10 on the next game. Give the likes of Doyle the startup on the wing, or Sadie the startup on the wing, and like Noah just has a finesse that I don't think anyone else, maybe with the likes other than the likes of Connor McGlynn, has to distribute. And I think the pairing with the likes of Clay Holstead, I feel like that could be a different kind of weapon. I'm not saying he has the physicality or maybe he may not even have like the durability in a role like that. But like every single pass I saw on the night was exactly where it needed to be. It just didn't yield to anything, with the exception of the indirect free kick there.
Yeah, I was just thinking it's way too early to be thinking about this, but Noah hasn't really put much of a foot wrong. If for some crazy reason the season were to stop, I think either Noah or Clay would probably be player of the season.
Oh, right now, well, no, Lee would get it.
You think? But he hasn't played every game.
Neither has Clay.
Yeah, that's why I would maybe lean towards Noah. But
I agree with you.
This is just a thought exercise.
No, they're completely in the running, 100%. So speaking of the other Crew 2 alumni, let's talk about Clay. Let's talk about this indirect free kick. I wanted to just jump straight into the beauty of it, but I think we actually have to explain to fans and to listeners about this rare unicorn of an opportunity that happened. I know that when we were up in the box, there were a lot of people going, wait, what is happening right now? We didn't understand it. We didn't hear what the ref was calling down below. A lot of people were confused on like, how does the penalty kick line up like that? We heard that. So I think it's important, especially for people that are just getting into soccer, just getting into the club, exactly what an indirect free kick is. We're going to keep it short, I promise. But basically, it is the ability to take a kick inside the box that is not a penalty kick, and it requires as an indirect free kick that someone else has to touch the ball before the kick can take place. So like unlike a direct free kick where you could just shoot right, like a penalty, you can just shoot right from where it is on the spot. Someone has to touch or move the ball and put it into motion before any kind of goal can be or kick can be committed that would count as a goal. Now, what's interesting is how this happened. And there's been a lot of speculation online, a lot of different opinions. We went to Seth the ref, and he was great about explaining what triggered it. And that is that when a keeper, and these are most of the time, these are keeper-induced infractions that result in an indirect free kick inside the box. But in the case that triggered for this, what it was it was controlling the ball with the hand or arm for more than 6 seconds before releasing it. We got a lot of questions about, well, that's just called time wasting, and in every other league, you're going to get a yellow card for that. And then you just move on with play. It's a tactic of the game to run out the clock. The difference here is that the way that a keeper wastes time is required by how they collect the ball. So if the game is reset because the kick goes out of play and then the keeper is stalling to restart the game, that is that delay of game kind of sequence. When a keeper collects the ball in any other form where it hasn't left the field, that's not a restart of play, and it's a different clock attribute that happens. Now, most of the time, keepers will not actually get penalized for this. It's just like one of those things that, like, as long as there's motion, there's a pump fake to kick it as they let their players get up the field, or they're commanding them to give them more space. But in certain circumstances, if a goalkeeper is just clearly not doing anything, and you maybe have one of the rowdiest supporters groups counting out loud the amount of seconds they're holding on to the ball, that gets onto the ref's radar. I went back and looked at the timing of how long Rios Novos held onto the ball. Did you check it?
Yeah, I think it's nearly 20 seconds.
22 seconds. 22 seconds. The IFAB rule is 6 seconds. So that is 3 times the length of the penalty, plus a warning from the ref to move the ball on, with the Defiant 1636 behind him screaming the countdown for it. And that's what leads to this indirect free kick. They do not get called a lot. I even asked Seth, like, why don't we see more of these? And it's just one of the things of the game that, like, especially, I think if the game's on the line and that comes down to an indirect free kick, that's insanity, right? So these do not happen as much as maybe they should. So it's really rare. It's really special to see one of these. But then on top of that, then you see the trick play, the showmanship, the sneakery that is the trio of Clay Holstead, Noah Fuson, and Jojea Quezera. When we saw it from afar, it was like, wow, that's still a difficult thing to do. Like, don't take any credit away. But then when you saw the replay, when I saw the social media post the next morning, oh my gosh, Jojea with the whole, wait, are we going? His hands up. I mean, he's an actor now. Give that man an Oscar. He just completely sold it. Noah Fuson with the perfect of touches. And then Clay Holstead just putting it into that upper bin. You couldn't have asked for a better first goal scored by Rhode Island FC at Burns Stadium. Like, if we weren't going to win on the night, at least we saw something that you may never be able to recreate in your lifetime in, like, watching a live soccer event in person.
Probably our goal of the season so far.
It's got my goal of the year. 100%.
When was the last time you've even seen an
I've never seen one in person.
No?
I've never seen one in person.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen one in person. I
saw one in I think the 2018 World Cup. I saw one because I was confused then how that happened.
I feel like there was a Chelsea game within the last few years. I saw one, but there's very rare. I wish they would happen more often. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah, and they're not guaranteed. Like, I went back and watched a few, like, of the best ones, but then also the most notorious ones. You get to put all 11 of your players in the net. Like, you can just block everything. So it's not like it's a guaranteed thing at that close of a range that you'll actually convert it. So, listen, congratulations to Clay on earning that honor. Of course it was him. Of course it was through the help of Fuson and Quezera. Fantastic. Unfortunately, with the good, must come the bad. Rhode Island FC once again demonstrates that they can't contain any momentum from a goal scored. This was Tampa Bay all over again. And 36 seconds later, as people are still, like, screaming the praises of Clay Holstead and listening to Psycho Killer, something terrible happens on the other side of the line.
Yeah, so I went back and looked at it because I do remember it just happened so fast that I was like, this can't, this, did this happen? And when you watch the restart, the team is RIFC. They're way too like, hey, let's chase this game. And you see like five of them immediately push up. They don't, win the ball back immediately, and they just kind of lob one over the top, and boom, we just get countered hard.
Yeah, a good two pass sequence into a good cross. Runners making the run exactly where they're supposed to be. Those are the kinds of things we need from our striker pair and our wingbacks to do on the norm. In style. It made me think when I watched it that I'm more confirmed now than ever that I think we've figured out the identity of this team, at least in the 3-5-2 schematic. Maybe this will change over time, but I think we've learned this is a transition team. This is not a counter-attacking team, but with the high press and with the with the style of play that we're looking for, this is a team that wants to recollect the ball in the opponent's third and then catch them on a transition opportunity and be goal dangerous. I don't think we could call it anything other than that at this point, unless you're seeing something that I'm not.
No, that tracks. RFC is number one in tackles and number one in winning the ball in the opponent's third or opponent's half. So, I mean, that makes sense. They want to win the ball up high, and they want to, like I said, not a counterattack, but, a transition. Try and attack the team before they have enough time to get everything in sorted. Because while we do have some speed, we don't seem to use it in that regards.
So listen, before we get our closing thoughts on this, the only other question we have to ask is, does Lee lose his starting spot now? I mean, he was the hot hand. Coach said as much in the post interview as to why he got the start, but a 3-1 loss. Some of that you can attribute to. I mean, there was only 4 shots on goal for the night against Jackson, and he missed 3 of them. I'm not saying it's ever the keeper's fault alone. There's definitely a lot to be answered for from that back 3 line. But that being said, is this the return of Vegas for the weekend?
Yeah, unless there's some sort of injury or health concern, I think we're going to see Vegas back. Coach gave him a chance, and he didn't do bad, but the team ultimately didn't win. Vegas is our captain and our starting keeper, so we should see him. We keep getting our predictions wrong, so I say this, but who knows?
I think if Vegas returns though, and you've been hinting at it, if we are a high press transition team, Vegas is known for his possession out of the back. It's something we have not seen since game 2. I wonder if that comes back into the fold on this game, because Lee has been very much a kick it upfield, hope that it's collected and something is done with it upstream. I don't know if we'll see that, or if right now Coach has to continue kind of on the pace that they're on to try to master what they're trying to unlock and become.
Yeah, that's a good shout. I'm not sure if we're immediately going to go right back to that. I guess that's something I'll be paying attention for this weekend.
Any other notes?
Yeah, just to kind of wrap up the second half here. I think the team played significantly better than they did in the first. They created a lot of chances and just kind of couldn't convert. There was that one really good chance that Doyle headed just over the bar. If he could have got it, Nova was not going to get to that. The team seemed to be playing with a higher tempo and more urgency. Coach said it seemed like it took the 2 goals going in to kind of wake them up. They seemed a bit passive in that first half. This team outperformed Phoenix in terms of XG 0.7 to 0.3, but of that 0.3, 0.24 was from the goal. So that's actually only 0.06. So they really didn't, if you go back and watch the second half, Phoenix really didn't create much. When we shifted to that 4-back line, and on top of that, it seemed like the team was a bit more active in their defending and better pressing than they were in the first half. We really contained Phoenix and didn't really give them a lot of opportunity, which is unfortunate, because if you thought maybe if we played like this from the outset, maybe the game could have looked different. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. I'm happy to see that team put a good half in despite not a great result.
Yeah, I think final words on the night were, Phoenix, again, needed to prove something to themselves. they were the highest chance creators coming into the game, but they were also the highest failed conversion on chance creations. And they did a far less amount of creation on the night, but their conversion rate was through the roof. So, sometimes people call that the luck stat, and either it just kind of fell into place for them, or we just couldn't keep it contained on the night. So hopefully that's something that does not haunt us, and coach has worked out what needs to be fixed going into this NCFC game on the weekend.
So now getting to table standings.
We don't have to do this, right? We don't have to do table standings. We don't have to talk about this, right? We're in third place, fourth place, like we predicted at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, so it looks like false spring got us. Now we're back in the basement. We're currently sitting in 11th place in the East. Only our opponent coming up here, North Carolina FC, is below us in the standings. I think this is going to be a test to see like where this team really is. It's going to be the 8th game of the season. I've said I'm giving them 10, but we're getting pretty close to that. So I think it's time to start to put together some results. Coach said that good teams don't lose 2 games in a row. So are we going to be a good team or, a different team?
It's funny. You made the false spring weather joke, which tells me then, if I remember right, summer's hell porch is in August, September. So does that mean we'll be heating up at the perfect time to go on a
perfect
playoff run?
time, yep.
If we need to bring our game to the calendar of Rhode Island, New England weather, I'm all about it. Sign me up. RIFC now only has 7 points on a 1-2-4 record after those first 7 games. Weirdly enough, North Carolina FC, the 2023 USL League One champions, with a similar record of 1-4-2. That's a lot of losses. They've come back into this championship this year on a kind of quote-unquote self-promotion after winning the league last year and saying, hey, we're coming back up. But this team is very closely mirrored to Rhode Island FC right now. They've struggled to produce offensively. They have just about the same goal differential. They have a lot of the same tactical kind of columns where they're doing well, and a lot of the same indicators where they're underperforming that are akin to Rhode Island FC. We'll get into that in a minute. But like, is this the tale of 2 expansion sides just trying to get their groove on? Because it certainly seems like it. In the injury camp, the ones that we were able to confirm, I could not confirm Stoneman, so I'm keeping him as a to be determined. I didn't get to go out to practice today, but we know JJ Williams is still out, Amos Shapiro-Thompson is still out, and Connor McGlynn. So I don't know if there's anyone else that's injured. I couldn't get my hands on the injury report ahead of the recording. So knowing if it's the same as last week, I think it's going to be the same lineup, except I think we will see a return of Koke Vegas in the goal. Do you think that, and I guess actually too, Chico, with that quad injury concern or listing in the press conference last week, who I don't know that he would be out per se, but if coach felt it was warranted to say that there was an injury, does this lineup sound right? Or do you think we would see a replacement of like Doyle for Chico, or do we think we would see Vegas not make that start?
No, I think that tracks. I think it's basically going to be the same lineup, Sansley. So Vegas will come back in. With Chico's quad injury, I'm not too familiar with those. I don't know if that's something. Consider like he played 60 minutes of the game or 50.
Yeah.
So I don't think it can be that bad, right? So we'll probably.
I'm not a professional athlete. I get knee pain just going upstairs. So
I think
not for me to
answer. I think
answer.
we'll probably see him again too. Maybe not the whole game, but I think he'll play.
Okay. And then on the North Carolina FC side, no injuries that we could report. We did some research. We think they're going to line up as a 3-4-3. That's been pretty static on the season so far, either a 3-4-3 or like a 3-4-1-2. But you're going to see the likes of Bryce Washington, Paco Craig, and Justin Malou in the back 3. Jake McGuire in the goal. I forgot to mention him. And then the people to watch are all mostly in the front side of this. Rafael Metzingan, Mikey Maldonado, Colin Martin, and Ezra Armstrong are going to be in that midfield 4. And then Rodrigo da Costa, Julian Palacios, and Luis Perez are going to be in that 3-winger combo. Like I said, I feel like I've actually said this line now. Charleston Battery was not the same Battery. Riverhounds were not the same Riverhounds. Phoenix Rising was not the same Phoenix Rising. This could be a jinx, but I'm going to say it anyways. North Carolina FC is not their former 2023 USL League One championship side.
Or is it they are themselves?
And this is just the performance level that you get. Most of these players are sign-on continuation. They've definitely reinforced in a lot of places, but a lot of these players are, for the most part, a part of the core of this squad. But this team seems like they're suffering in the same as we are as that, quote unquote expansion team. They've really done a good job in experimenting with a high press this season, similar to us. What's interesting is that they're leading in a couple of key categories that I think Rhode Island FC needs to be, cognizant of. One, they lead in accurate crossing, so that's a very big concern, considering 2 of our goals against in the last game were from run of play crosses, as well as our standard set piece creation opportunities where we've struggled in the past. So that's something that we need to be considerate of. And then their chances created is pretty high in the league's average right now, mostly from that crossing. But they do also lead in the top 5 when it comes to touches in the opposition box as a result of this experimentation with the high press. So this is a team that basically we want to be, or they already are, and we are already a version of that, where it is going to be a battle of high presses that's going to result in who can catch a transition and take their wingers or wingbacks up the field and get a ball in a dangerous area. Ironically, again, and it continues to line up. Weirdly enough, this is also something where we've seen that North Carolina FC is dead even with us on fouls committed, where we average very high. I think we're both tied for 4th place in that stat, but they get away with a lot more of the fouls. They're significantly lower when it comes to yellow card conversion on those fouls. So this is going to be a game of wingbacks. Wingbacks or fullbacks, whatever you want to call it. A lot of play is going to come down those flanks, and it's going to be a matter of coach needing to understand how does he leverage the likes of Quizera. Turnbull is going to be more in danger this game because they have a lot more attacking threat on the left side of their field. But understanding if you've got 2 teams, and you've said this earlier, like how do you set up against a team that's kind of operating in your same style? Do you bring the wingbacks in and keep it tighter? Or do you go like we're going for murder here and we're going to catch you in your final third, or you're going to catch us, and it's going to be kind of an explosive situation on the evening. Am I missing anything on that before we get into the player breakdown?
They're a weird team. They don't score a lot of goals. They're rated pretty low in goals per match. They're 18th in the league. Shots on target, they're 22nd. So they're weird. They send in crosses, but they're not, something's going wrong up front there. But then also at the same point, they are not allowing a lot of shots against them. A lot of their games are pretty tight, with the exception of that 3-2 game against New Mexico. They're either winning by 1 goal or they're losing by 1 goal. So I think they like to keep themselves in the game, but they just aren't scoring as much as they did. Ironically, back last year, they were the highest scoring team in League One. But so maybe some of that talent has not translated over to the championship, and maybe they need to kind of scale up front, or maybe they're just kind of having some adjustment period where they're trying to figure out the league. I imagine it's not exactly the same as League One.
Yeah, I mean, whatever it is, coach has hopefully been studying this week. He's been watching the tape. The 3 players to watch out for from North Carolina. First, in the midfield, Rafael Metzingen. He's, like I said, he's very comfortable on the wing. He's leading the team in assists right now, as well as key crosses in the stats that matter. And then he's also bagged a goal of his own, so he's not afraid to track in or make second runs from that outside wing. So he's going to be a player that needs to be watched. Quizera and Alves need to be kind of head on a swivel, but again, it's that left side. So opposite Rafael on the other side, and probably the more dangerous of the 2 wingers is Ezra Armstrong. Similar stats and everything except for converting into assists or goals, but where he's performing more in a complete wingback is that defensive side you kind of alluded to. He's producing insane defense numbers, and when it comes to his stat contributions, but he's also, again, he's getting up in the right places at the right time offensively. I think the difference here is that with his defensive capability, he's allowed his winger partner in Luis Perez to kind of be the bright star in NCFC right now. With like, even though they're struggling to create goals, he's leading the team with goals scored. His shooting average is higher than the rest of the team by a considerable amount, including their lone forward. And his shots are on target. So whatever he's doing to cut in, to get in, he's making all of the passes. He's making all the attempts on goal. And with Ezra kind of locking down that side, he's got a lot more comfortability. So definitely Turnbull, Nodarse, and Yao are going to make sure that they need to contain those two players specifically on the night, so that doesn't lead to anything that would be disadvantage. That would not be an advantage for Rhode Island FC. I think that this is literally a mirror match game. I'm not up for it. I'm not against it. I think that this is going to be, especially again, we talk about that pendulum that we've seen from this club this season. They do one thing, then they overcorrect back, and then we learn a lesson, and we overcorrect back. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to break that habit this time or continue on with the pendulum, but I'm cautious right now.
Yeah, I have some, I'll call it hesitant optimism for this game. That this team, North Carolina FC, is doing okay in a few stats, but I think that this Rhode Island team has the tools to beat them. It's just, can we kind of put that performance together again?
So what are the tools?
I think if we can kind of see some more of what happened in Vegas, I would like to see some better crossing, like we did see in Vegas. That, that's not to say that we can't try just a regular old cross, but, get some cutbacks in there, try and get to the byline, put some variety in there. And if Dikwa is the only person in the box, I mean, he's not going to beat, 2 or 3 defenders. So we either need to make sure that Fuson, maybe wait, or try and get at least 1 or 2 more people there to try and help him out and attack the ball, while also kind of balancing that, hey, let's not get countered at the same time. Also, after we scored our amazing indirect free kick, there's a commentators always say you're most vulnerable after scoring. So I think that's a very important lesson for the team to learn, that, hey, as much as you maybe need to chase games at times, don't give up a goal 5 seconds later, because at that point, you're not in it anymore.
Don't give up a goal 7 minutes in, and don't give up a goal 5 seconds after you score. I could coach.
Write this down.
Yeah, right. I think that's fair. Listen, my thoughts are, again, back to the pendulum piece. Just don't overcorrect here and focus only on the defensive composure. It's really easy if a team like NCFC is scoring low to just do what I think the Riverhounds kind of came in to do against us, and just block and get steal a point on the road. I think we need to start getting those wins regardless of where they come from and when. But I really do believe, back to what we said at the beginning of the match, for Phoenix, the wingbacks have to be a part of the solution this week. And that's either defensively so that other players can get unlocked and have direct play, or better crossing, better cutting back, and better shuffling the rotation of the ball up, to the top line or into dangerous goal scoring opportunities. There were so many times where we just saw Quizera or Turnbull bring the ball down, not know where to go with it or what to do, not even send a cross in, and just kind of okay, I've held onto the ball for 30 seconds. I think I need to give it back to someone else. So finding that way in transition to unlock it, because if the wingbacks do get pinned defensively this game, having to contain the likes of North Carolina's wingers, then direct play has to be the answer on the night, and that means Chico or whoever is up in that striker system has to stand up. I honestly think that if you're playing the card collector app, this is a game of pick which winger you think is due. And I wouldn't pick Turnbull just because of the offensive side, and then pick the striker because I think that's where the goals are going to come from. Unless Holsta does what Holsta does and just score a filthy rocket from 53 yards out on the other side of the halfway line. So I don't know. It's going to be an insane game either way. I think it's going to be a cagey. I think we are coming to this with our noses a little bloodied. And I think that this club needs to prove to themselves and to the fans that they have what it takes to like you said, not lose 2 in a row right now. So I will be really curious what happens on Saturday night. let's get into these score predictions. FOMOB has Rhode Island FC winning this game by 75%. So no faith, no love. North Carolina FC only favored to win by 21%. And there's 4% of the weirdos out there that think that this will end up in a draw. You're still winning the prediction game. What do you got?
I'm in a, hesitant optimism. I'm going with 2-1.
Okay. I'm the weirdo, I guess. I'm in the 4% camp. I'm saying 1-1. I think that this team maybe gets up early or chases, but like I don't think I think right now we need to protect points, but I think also like show that we can learn the lessons. And so I think we'll score one, but then maybe one will get earned back, and that'll be enough on the night from a performance standpoint. I want wins, but like I don't want L's anymore. Like L's are what bury teams right now. You see that with other clubs in New England specifically. It's okay. Like draws rely on that like hopefulness that like we'll get this figured out. Losses when they stack become problematic on the hearts and minds of fans trying to get into this game. So I think a tie is more important than a loss, and I would be okay. I want a win, but I think it's going to be a tie. We seem to perform to the nature of the team we play against. We saw that with the Riverhounds. I feel like, and especially away, I don't know. We do have a better track record of goal scoring though on the road. So what do I know? Maybe it is 2-1. You got this right last time you did it. So again, if you can win the prediction season and we start getting some wins because I'm pragmatic or borderline pessimistic, then I'll take it. Let's get into these listener questions, huh?
All right. Matthew Jean here is asking about the 3-5-2. He is curious if coach is using it to torture us.
Yes, Matthew. His entire day is spent hanging out with his Doberman and figuring out ways to torture the fans.
He's an energy vampire.
I don't know. It's a good question on like why he's deploying it. We've never really asked him like what is his thought process behind it. We just know that he seems to be trying to get the 3-5-2 to perform to an expectation. But I don't know why he's choosing it.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
He has enough players to do literally any formation.
It might be in vogue right now. There are a lot of teams in the USL using 3-back lines.
What does Wilfried Nancy use in Columbus? That's his like best friend, and they went to coaching college together.
I don't know.
I'm going to say it's a 3-5-2, and then I'm just kidding. I have no idea. All right. Taras asks, do you think the reason RIFC hasn't been as successful as we would have liked is due more to the players, the formation, or maybe that they just aren't that good? Wow.
Oh man.
Someone call a wellness check on Taras. We've got someone in the dark over here.
Oh man, maybe we just suck. No, it's tough building a team from scratch. Like we've mentioned numerous times, I think that there's a combination of injuries. If Dequa becomes available, you just have to take him. So, it's a learning process for all of us. So,
I think that if you think that it's back down to players being not good, I would say it's definitely more the formation that's being asked of them than the actual talent. I don't think there's a poor performer on this squad. I think it's just right place, right time, and what they're comfortable with.
Yeah, I mean, we see, what is it, Jadon Sancho, the performance he put in against PSG. He had one of the highest amount of dribbles in the Champions League, up there with Neymar, and everyone was laughing at him at Manchester United for the last few years. You just put him back on Dortmund, and all of a sudden he's an amazing player again. Sometimes, square pegs just don't fit into the round holes or vice versa. And I think this...
Shout out to the Square Peg, great restaurant.
Yeah. These are clearly talented players. We're trying to figure out what combination of, square pegs and round holes. And I think there's a triangle in there too, right?
In a square? No, there's no well, I mean, I guess you could.
That wooden toy thing.
Is that a geometry joke? Are you going with geometry jokes? We're getting late.
No, did you not have one of those things? No. Okay, whatever.
For those
Moving
that
on.
don't have
FQB here,
and what Jason's doing with his hands right now, I couldn't even explain it.
It's that wooden toy that you use to fill. There's even one I think that was a star. It's just to like teach kids like matching. I think
you're asking me something so long ago.
FQB here wants to know, what do you think the key for RIFC to unlock their obvious potential is, and why is it the 4-4-2?
Well, I mean, one, it's not the 4-4-2. It's the 4-3-3. We've been over this. This will be an eternal battle between FQB and I. I think it's all of our players being healthy so that coach can make the most successful decision on game day to build the team that he probably has envisioned. I don't think he's had the starting 11 that he signed on the pitch together yet. And so when that comes, and maybe we can do an exercise, maybe we just keep projecting that as the wrong Wednesday formation till it happens. We physically manifest it into the world. But it's a 4-3-3, and it's just we need our players all to be healthy at the same time. So that's my answer. Tim writes in, what are your overall thoughts on the quality of the television broadcast? Tim's always coming up with the left field questions. I like it. He's always asking the interesting things. Do you think having Nessun Plus involved has helped the team produce a product on par with the rest of the league, or is it better or worse in some way?
I can't say that I've watched any of the Nessun Plus broadcasts because I've either been at the game, or I think when we're at the guild, or are they using ESPN Plus, right?
I don't know. This is a question for you. Don't loop me in. I didn't do any research on this. I didn't prep this one. You chose this question for yourself too, so that's why I didn't even put any thought into it.
Because someone upvoted it, so
yeah, you could have assigned it to me and you didn't. So I did zero research into this. This is the quality of production effort I put into it.
I think it definitely helps to have local broadcasts. I don't know what that product is like because I have an ESPN Plus subscription, or I'm at the game.
I will say there was an announcer at the Vegas game that was terrible, but it was more an audio quality thing. He wasn't a bad announcer.
Yeah, but is that more USL's problem though? Or
it's a fair question. I know that when there are unique varieties of the play-by-play announcers, you notice those things. So like there was the Trinidad and Tobago guy at the Rowdies who I like fell in love with his game calling, and then in Vegas I very much noticed there was one guy who like was in front of the mic. And there was a guy that I think was in a closet,
like in another room,
through it, trying to get heard. So yeah, I mean, listen, Tim, I have zero expectations other than that the game is on, and hopefully there's sound. But like, even if there was no sound, I could like continue to watch the game without it. So, more to come on it. I can tell you that the people that are in the production towers with us are extremely professional. They cover. I think one of the teams that was there had just finished covering the Rangers in New York on like the first game of the season. One of them was coming from MetLife doing some other production work. So these are all people that we bring on that are exceptionally talented. So that's the only best way I could say it.
And one like more of a shout out here to Brendan, who always comes out with really well thought out long questions that often are too intense and require a lot of prep time to answer. Maybe we'll come back to some of those when we have nothing else to talk about. Andrew Q also had a good one this week too. That was just like, guys, we're spending a lot of our free time prepping for this, and I would love to sit down and talk about this, but I don't know. We have jobs, unfortunately. So we'll table that for now. There's a lot of jokes about who founded Hartford, but that's maybe a little PG-13. We put kids to sleep.
Yeah, we're G. We're G. At most, we use very strong words, but we don't use the bad words.
So we'll let you research for that for yourself in preparation for the Hartford Derby coming up.
Did you know I had a nightmare the other night that we had recorded an episode and I had sworn on it and I missed it on the edit and like it demonetized, even though we don't get any money off of this. It, like that's in my nightmares rent free in my head. So like that's also my biggest fear is why we don't do guests or why we haven't done live in that scenario yet, because like it just takes one drunken personality to loose tongue it, and then we're in deep trouble. So but we will get to that one, Brendan, when we have the time. I still want to also do his experiment where like we recruit the 5 like Rhode Island personalities like on like a pickup game, and like who would we pick. So I definitely want to play that game with you maybe in the off season when there's a little bit like extra time to cover that stuff. But see, speaking of time, we are running long, so let's get through these events and get out of here.
You can watch RIFC on the road this weekend, taking on NCFC via ESPN Plus, or you can come out to the Defiant 1636 watch party at the Guild in Pawtucket, or the official watch party for the club at Proclamation, with action kicking off at 7 p.m. May the 4th be with us.
We got to get the Star Wars win there. I don't know if we're going to the Guild or if we'll go to Proc. We may mix it up this time around, not because we don't love Defiance, but just spreading our own appreciation to fans. We don't know. We'll keep you posted in social media. And then Rhode Island FC will be back home at Burns Stadium on Saturday, 5/11, as they take on the Sacramento Republic, a team that I am fearing more than anything right now. They can't seem to be doing anything wrong. They'll be taking that to the pitch at 7 p.m. with the parking lot opening at 4 p.m. Or you can watch it on NESN Plus or ESPN Plus. Fun fact, that game is also going to be for Rhode Island FC's Mother Day celebration. That's right, Mothers. There's a special Mother's Day package right now, including 2 tickets and a special limited edition Mother's Day t-shirt. I'm dying to see what that is. Like, what have they concocted for Mother's Day and soccer?
Hopefully it has Chip on it.
It's got
Everyone
right?
loves Chip.
It's just got to be Chip, like with the hug, with arms wide open. But it also has 2 drink vouchers for $65. That's a over $100 value. So if you haven't come out to a game recently or at all, and you've been looking for a good reason, or if you've got a mother in your life, you can grab that by calling the club at 401-422-1320 or emailing your ticket service rep or tickets at rhodeislandfc.com. And then fun fact, I'll be the person hyping that game in person. I'm taking on the role of Flanny.
Oh, it's going to be you?
Yeah, so I've been promoted from PA for a single game to now doing the hype man. I'm gonna be picking the person that picks the taco in the taco shuffle. That is the highest honor. I can't wait to update my LinkedIn profile for that. I don't even know what to call it yet, but I'm gonna do that.
So if you call that a promotion, I'm curious. I'm gonna have to start to plan out what I think your next projected promotion will be as you move your way around and do guest appearances at all the different.
The end result is I'm just like the 4th chip. That's all it is. And you'll know. I'll have a secret.
Or somehow you just end up one of the people up front just scanning tickets.
Hey, those people work hard. How dare you?
Yeah, no, they are valuable members of the team. Saturday, May 25th is RIFC's Military Appreciation Day, featuring special programming to honor active duty military members, veterans, and their families. There are also special donation programs to get service members and vets out to a game. We'll most likely be donating our extra tickets. If you know someone, let us know. If this is something that you'd like to participate in and support, check your emails.
Yeah, we're gonna give our tickets for that week. So if there is someone, just drop a name in like a direct message to us, and we'll just make sure we vet that they can go out. And happy to do that. So thank you to all of you that have served or are still serving. And then just a little fun fact, I just want to throw it out here now because I'm really happy that the club is starting to do this. They announced their next away game. I think sometimes they've announced their watch parties a little too late. So the May 17th game against Colorado Springs was going to be at Troop. So that is a fantastic bar. That's a really great place to grab a drink. I've not paid attention to their soccer or their TV environment. I don't know quite how that will work, but really cool place to have a game watch party. So if that's something that interests you, that'll be a 9 p.m. game, by the way. We have 2 games that are super late this year, and one of them will be Troop at 9 p.m. on May 17th.
All they care about is the West Coast.
I don't understand why West Coast just can't wake up and have brunch and watch sports. I don't know why we have to be up till like 1 in the morning. It's the weirdest controversy. Anyways, let's get the heck out of here.
All right, guys. We're on Twitter, Threads, and TikTok at RFC Podcast, Instagram at Raising Anchor, and the website www.raisinganchorpodcast.com.
Anchor's up, buddy. Let's get this win. Let's just not lose.
Anchor's up. Let's win.